Good evening, listener, and welcome back to the After Midnight Archive. Whether you're joining us from a quiet bedroom, a lonely highway, the night shift, or somewhere deep in the darkness, thank you for tuning in for another archived account from the shadows, collected from forgotten places, unexplained encounters, and stories that refuse to stay buried. Some are chilling, some are mysterious, and some leave more questions than answers. So dim the lights, settle in, and keep one ear on the darkness. You never know what might be listening back. This is After Midnight Archive, where every story has a shadow, and every shadow has a story. Let's open tonight's file. This archive entry is number 27582. We weren't invaded. The first sign that the world was ending arrived on a Tuesday. Not with explosions, not with screaming, not with alien ships blotting out the sky. It arrived as a strange sound hidden beneath ordinary life. Ethan Mercer never heard it, at least not at first. At 6:13 a.m., his alarm clock dragged him from sleep in his small apartment on the outskirts of Charlotte. Rain tapped softly against the bedroom window, while distant thunder rolled somewhere beyond the city skyline. The day felt normal. Painfully normal. Ethan worked as a maintenance technician for a commercial electrical company. His life was routine: wake up, shower, drink terrible coffee, fight traffic, fix things that broke, repeat. Most days felt identical. That morning felt no different. He stood in front of the bathroom mirror, rubbing sleep from his eyes. 32 years old, brown hair, slightly unshaven, a small scar above his eyebrow from an accident years ago. Nothing remarkable. Exactly the kind of man history forgot. Outside, the world moved as it always had. School buses rolled through neighborhoods. Parents rushed to work. Dogs barked. Construction crews filled gas stations and convenience stores. No one realized humanity had less than 24 hours left. By 7:40 a.m., Ethan was climbing into his company truck. His phone buzzed. A text from his younger sister. "Don't forget Mom's birthday dinner tomorrow." He smiled. Wouldn't miss it. It would be the last message he ever sent. The morning passed uneventfully. A broken transformer, a malfunctioning breaker panel, routine service calls. Around noon, Ethan stopped at a small diner near a rural highway. The waitress poured coffee. The television above the counter showed a news segment discussing unusual auroras appearing across multiple countries. Scientists seemed confused. The lights had appeared where they shouldn't exist, near the equator, across deserts, over oceans. Some lasted only seconds, others remained for hours. The anchors laughed nervously. The footage looked beautiful. Green and violet ribbons dancing across black skies. No one knew those lights were the first visible symptom. The signal had already arrived. By sunset, strange reports were appearing online. Bird migrations changing direction, whales beaching themselves, entire forests falling silent. Millions dismissed it as coincidence, a statistical anomaly, nature being nature. The truth was far worse. Something was listening, and Earth had finally answered. At 10:17 p.m., Ethan returned home. Rain hammered the apartment roof. Power flickered briefly. His television lost signal for 3 seconds, then returned. A moment later, every electronic device in the apartment activated simultaneously. Television, microwave, laptop, phone, even an old battery-powered radio sitting in a closet. All turned on. Every speaker emitted the same sound, a low vibration, almost below human hearing. The room trembled. Ethan stared in confusion. The vibration lasted exactly 11 seconds. Then everything shut off. Silence. What the hell? He checked the breakers. Nothing appeared wrong. His phone showed dozens of missed notifications. Internet outages, emergency alerts, reports from across the globe. The same phenomenon had happened everywhere, every city, every country, every continent, at exactly the same time. Governments urged calm. Scientists promised explanations. No explanations came. At midnight, satellites began disappearing. Not exploding, not malfunctioning, simply vanishing. One moment visible on tracking systems, the next moment gone, as if erased. Military organizations worldwide entered high alert. Civilian populations slept through most of it. Humanity's final peaceful night had begun. Ethan woke at 4:52 a.m. Something felt wrong. The room seemed unnaturally quiet. No traffic, no distant engines, no city sounds, nothing. His stomach tightened. He walked to the window. The street below was empty. Every vehicle sat abandoned. Traffic lights blinked endlessly. No pedestrians, no movement, no sound. Then he looked up. The moon was gone, not hidden. Gone. Above the city floated something impossible. A structure. Massive, beyond comprehension. Dark enough to blot out stars, it stretched across the sky like an artificial continent. Countless lights pulsed across its surface. Cold, white, precise. Not a spacecraft, a machine world, the size of a nation. Hovering silently above Earth, Ethan froze. Every instinct screamed at him to run. But run where? His phone exploded with alerts, emergency broadcasts, government warnings, military mobilizations. Stay indoors, remain calm, await instructions. The messages stopped abruptly. Cell service vanished. Internet vanished. Radio vanished. Every communication system on Earth died within seconds. Then the structure moved, not quickly, not dramatically, slowly. Purposefully, a section of its underside opened. Thousands of lights emerged, descending, like stars falling from heaven. Except stars didn't move with intelligence, and stars didn't hunt. The first deaths occurred 37 minutes later, not in cities, not on battlefields, in isolated locations. Remote farms, mountain towns, research stations, places where witnesses were scarce. The creatures appeared without warning, tall, thin, humanoid, wrong. Every movement seemed delayed by a fraction of a second, as though reality struggled to keep pace with them. Witnesses described elongated limbs, featureless faces, black eyes reflecting no light. The creatures spoke no language, made no sounds, showed no emotion. They simply arrived, and people disappeared. Entire families vanished. Vehicles remained parked. Meals remained unfinished. Televisions remained on. Only the people were gone. By noon, military forces engaged. Fighter jets launched worldwide. Missiles fired. Radar systems tracked targets. None returned. No debris, no explosions, nothing. Humanity's most advanced weapons accomplished absolutely nothing. The invaders continued descending, unhindered, unconcerned, as though humanity wasn't an enemy, merely an inconvenience. Ethan spent the day barricaded inside his apartment. The city outside deteriorated rapidly. Panic spread, sirens wailed, distant gunfire echoed through neighborhoods. Helicopters crossed the skyline. Several never emerged from the clouds. As darkness approached, he made a decision. Staying put meant waiting to die. He needed supplies, water, food, medicine, anything. The nearest grocery store sat 4 blocks away. A short walk, simple, except nothing was simple anymore. The streets felt abandoned. Wind pushed trash across empty intersections. Cars sat where drivers had fled. Storefront windows reflected dying daylight. Ethan reached the grocery store just before sunset. Inside, shelves were stripped bare. People shoved carts. Arguments erupted. Fear infected everyone. Then the lights went out. Every bulb, every sign, every emergency fixture. Darkness swallowed the building. Someone screamed. A crash echoed from the back of the store. Then another scream. Closer. The crowd surged toward exits. Ethan found himself pushed between shelves, trapped. Something moved in the darkness ahead. Tall, silent, watching. A pair of pale eyes opened. Not human, not animal, something else. Ethan's heart nearly stopped. The figure tilted its head, studying him. Then every exit door slammed shut. The screams began again, and this time they weren't coming from the crowd. They were coming from everywhere, as though the darkness itself had found a voice. Ethan realized with absolute certainty that whatever had arrived on Earth wasn't invading, it was harvesting, and humanity had only just begun to understand the nightmare. The pale eyes moved closer, one silent step at a time, then stopped, directly in front of him. The creature extended a long hand toward his face and whispered a single word, a word no human language should have contained, a word that somehow sounded familiar, a word Ethan recognized from somewhere deep inside his memories. The word was, return, and then everything went black. Darkness didn't feel like sleep. Sleep had comfort. This felt like drowning. Ethan drifted through an endless void where strange images flashed behind his eyes. Towering cities beneath black suns. Oceans illuminated from below by enormous moving shadows. Planets wrapped in metallic rings that pulsed like living veins. And always the same symbol, a circle. Inside the circle, 3 vertical lines. The image burned itself into his mind over and over. Then came the voices, thousands of them, speaking simultaneously. Different languages, different ages, different emotions, yet somehow saying the same thing. It is awake. It has found us. Do not answer. Do not look at the sky. It is awake. The voices abruptly stopped. Ethan opened his eyes and wished he hadn't. At first he thought he was floating in space. The room around him possessed no visible walls, no ceiling, no floor. Only darkness stretching endlessly in every direction, yet he could somehow stand. A faint blue glow illuminated the air beneath his feet. His breathing echoed strangely, not like sound, like vibrations moving through water. Ethan Mercer. The voice came from everywhere. He spun around. Nothing. Who's there? No answer. Then the darkness shifted. A figure emerged. One of the creatures. Its appearance was clearer now. Roughly human height. Elongated limbs. Smooth gray skin. Featureless face except for 2 impossibly black eyes. Eyes that seemed deeper than physical space. Ethan backed away. The creature remained motionless. Studying him. Not threatening, not aggressive, simply observing. You took me? Silence. Why? The creature tilted its head. Then another voice answered, not through sound. Inside his mind. We did not take you. Ethan nearly stumbled backward. What? You were selected. The words felt wrong, as though translated imperfectly, like concepts forced into human language. Selected. Not captured. Selected. For what? The creature stared, and for the first time Ethan sensed emotion, not hatred, not anger, fear. The realization chilled him. The alien was afraid. For survival. Before Ethan could respond, the darkness exploded into light. Earth appeared beneath him, not physically, a projection, a living image suspended in space. The planet rotated slowly. Clouds drifted across continents. City lights glowed along coastlines, beautiful, fragile. Then black shapes appeared, thousands of them, surrounding Earth. The enormous structure from the sky was merely one vessel. There were countless others, waiting, watching. The sight made Ethan's stomach drop. Humanity hadn't been invaded. Humanity had been surrounded. They are coming. The voice again, not the creature, something older, vast, ancient. Ethan turned. The room had changed. A second figure stood behind him, taller, far taller, nearly 10 feet high. Its body shimmered like liquid metal. The darkness bent around it. Reality itself seemed distorted by its presence. Unlike the others, this being possessed a face, or something resembling one, and its eyes. Its eyes contained stars, actual stars, entire galaxies swirling inside endless darkness. Every instinct told Ethan not to look directly at it, yet he couldn't look away. We are not your enemy. The words struck him like physical force. Then why are people disappearing? Silence. A hesitation, as though the being regretted the answer. Because they cannot survive what comes next. The projection changed. Stars appeared, then entire solar systems. One by one they vanished, not destroyed, consumed, like candles extinguished by an unseen hand. Hundreds, thousands, millions, civilizations erased, worlds swallowed by darkness. Ethan watched in horror. What is doing that? The being finally answered, and the answer shattered whatever certainty remained. It. What's it? The creature's star-filled eyes focused on him. The thing your species awakened. A memory surfaced. The strange signal, the worldwide broadcast, the vibration, the auroras, the missing satellites, everything. The being continued. For billions of your years it slept between galaxies. Silent, waiting, dreaming, every intelligent species eventually discovers the same technology. Images flashed around Ethan. Alien civilizations, advanced beyond imagination, each discovering something. A signal, a frequency, a method of communication across impossible distances. They always send a message. The being stepped closer, and eventually something answers. The projection changed again. A single point of darkness appeared. Tiny, harmless. Then it began expanding. Stars disappeared around it. Entire nebulae vanished. Reality folded inward. Space itself seemed consumed. Ethan couldn't comprehend what he was seeing. His brain rejected it. The scale was impossible. It does not invade worlds. It consumes existence. Cold terror gripped him. Then stop it. We have tried. What do you mean you've tried? The being stared silently, and Ethan suddenly understood. The ships, the disappearances, the harvest, the selections. These creatures weren't conquerors, they were refugees, running, hiding, surviving just like humanity. A violent tremor shook the chamber. The floor flickered. Darkness rippled. Alarms erupted, not sounds, thoughts. Raw panic flooding the air. Every alien in the chamber froze. For the first time, Ethan saw genuine terror. The tall being turned toward something unseen. Its galaxy-filled eyes widened. Impossible. Ancient. Terrified. No. The word echoed through every surface. No, 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 no. The chamber exploded. Ethan hit the floor hard. Blue light vanished. Darkness consumed everything. Metal screamed. Structures collapsed. The vessel shook violently. Something enormous had struck it. Something impossibly powerful. Emergency lights flashed. Red, crimson, blood-colored illumination filled twisting corridors. The aliens began running. Not attacking, not fighting. Running. Panic spread through the ship like wildfire. Ethan scrambled to his feet. The vessel lurched again. A distant impact thundered through the structure. Then another. Then another. Something was tearing through the fleet. A wall nearby ruptured. Not exploded. Opened, as though reality itself had been peeled apart. Beyond the opening existed absolute darkness. No stars, no light, no space, nothing. A void, a hole punched directly into existence. And from that void, something looked back. Ethan only saw it for a fraction of a second. A silhouette larger than mountains, larger than cities. Something impossible. Something ancient. An outline moving inside endless darkness. His mind immediately rejected the image. Pain shot through his skull. Blood trickled from his nose. He fell backward, screaming. The thing beyond the opening noticed him. He knew it, felt it, like a predator locking onto prey. The void shifted, and somewhere inside that impossible darkness, a single eye opened. Watching, studying, recognizing, the eye was bigger than a skyscraper. And it was looking directly at Ethan Mercer. Not humanity, not Earth, him. The vessel shook again, the opening sealed. The eye vanished, but the feeling remained. The certainty. It had seen him, and somehow it knew his name. Emergency lights flickered. The ship continued collapsing around him. Aliens fled in every direction. Far away, something roared, not through air, through reality itself. A sound that shouldn't exist, a sound older than time. Ethan forced himself to move. One step, then another. Then he began running. Because whatever had awakened, whatever had consumed entire galaxies, whatever was now approaching Earth, had just looked directly at him. And it had smiled. The ship was dying. Ethan could feel it. Every corridor groaned under impossible stress. Walls rippled as though made from living metal. Red emergency lights flashed in uneven bursts, throwing long shadows across the twisting passageways. Around him the aliens ran, not with military discipline, not with calculated precision, with panic. Raw, desperate panic. The kind of panic prey feels when it realizes a predator has already chosen its target. A distant impact rocked the vessel again. Ethan slammed against a wall. The floor beneath him tilted sharply. Several of the gray-skinned beings lost their footing and disappeared into a collapsing section of corridor. No screams followed. Only silence. A silence somehow more frightening. Another impact. Closer. Something was tearing through the fleet. Whatever existed beyond that impossible darkness had arrived. And the refugees, the creatures humanity believed were invaders, were completely helpless against it. Hours later, Ethan found an escape pod. At least, that was what he assumed it was. The chamber contained dozens of smooth black capsules arranged in circular rows. Most were already empty. Others were occupied by frightened aliens preparing for departure. Nobody stopped him. Nobody even acknowledged him. The beings seemed consumed by survival. A warning echoed through the chamber. Not spoken, felt, a wave of emotion. Urgency, terror, finality. The fleet was lost. Ethan understood that much. The giant being with galaxies in its eyes appeared one final time, standing atop a platform overlooking the chamber. The ancient creature looked smaller now, not physically, emotionally, like a king watching his kingdom burn. Its eyes met Ethan's. For a moment, neither moved. Then the being pointed toward one of the capsules. A silent command. Go. Ethan hesitated. The creature repeated the gesture. The vessel shook violently. Metal screamed. Something outside struck the ship with catastrophic force. The chamber ruptured. Rows of capsules launched automatically. Without thinking, Ethan dove into the nearest one. Darkness sealed around him. The pod fired. The descent was chaos. Flames engulfed the exterior. The capsule spun violently through Earth's atmosphere. Warning symbols flashed across unfamiliar displays. Outside the viewport, the sky had become a battlefield. Hundreds of alien vessels burned. Massive structures broke apart overhead. Entire sections of the fleet fell like meteors. Streaks of fire crossed the heavens. Humanity watched its first alien war unfold above the clouds. And humanity wasn't participating. It was simply trapped beneath it. A civilization caught between predators. The pod shook violently. Then the ocean appeared below. Black water, storm clouds, lightning, impact. Ethan awoke, coughing. Cold seawater filled the capsule. Emergency lights blinked weakly. The hatch hung partially open. Waves crashed against the exterior. The pod had landed near shore. Barely. He dragged himself outside. Rain hammered his face. Wind howled. Somewhere in the distance, a city burned. Columns of smoke stretched into the storm. The horizon glowed orange. The world was already changing. The apocalypse had begun. 3 days passed. Civilization collapsed faster than anyone imagined. Power grids failed. Communication networks vanished. Governments stopped issuing statements. Military forces disappeared from public view. Rumors replaced facts. Every survivor had a different story. Some claimed entire cities had vanished overnight. Others described impossible creatures emerging from shadows. There were stories of people hearing voices through disconnected radios. Stories of entire neighborhoods walking into the wilderness and never returning. Nobody knew what was true anymore. The internet was gone. Truth died with it. Ethan traveled mostly alone. He avoided highways, avoided towns, avoided people whenever possible. Sometimes people were more dangerous than monsters. Food became scarce. Water became precious. Every decision carried risk. Every sound could mean death. The world felt haunted, not by ghosts, by anticipation, as though reality itself was holding its breath, waiting. On the fourth night, Ethan found other survivors, 6 of them, sheltering inside an abandoned visitor center near the Blue Ridge Mountains. The group was cautious but welcoming. There was Marcus, a former firefighter, Elena, an emergency room nurse, a retired history professor named Wilson, a teenage girl called Sophie, and 2 brothers who barely spoke. For the first time since the invasion, Ethan wasn't alone. That alone felt dangerous. Because hope had become dangerous. Hope gave you something to lose. The group settled around a small lantern. Rain battered the windows outside. Nobody spoke for a while. Finally, Wilson broke the silence. "I don't think they're aliens." Everyone looked at him. "What?" Marcus asked. Wilson adjusted his glasses. "They came from space, sure." He stared into the lantern light. "But that doesn't make them aliens." Nobody understood. The old professor continued. "I think they're running from something older." A chill moved through the room. Ethan remembered the eye, the darkness, the smile. He remained silent. Wilson leaned forward. "Every ancient civilization has myths about beings arriving from the stars." "Okay," Marcus said. "Every one of those myths also includes something else." The professor's voice lowered. "A warning." Nobody laughed. Nobody dismissed him. The world no longer allowed skepticism. Wilson continued. "They describe a darkness that follows." A sudden knock interrupted him. Everyone froze. 3 slow knocks. From outside, the room went silent. Another knock. Then another. Nobody moved. The storm continued raging beyond the walls. Marcus slowly approached a window, peered outside, then immediately stepped backward. His face had gone pale. "What is it?" Elena whispered. Marcus didn't answer. He simply pointed. Ethan looked and felt ice flood his veins. A figure stood outside, alone, perfectly still. A man, or at least it looked like a man, but something felt wrong. Terribly wrong. Its posture, its smile, its eyes. The eyes reflected no light. Black, completely black. The figure raised one hand and knocked again, even though it stood 20 feet away from the building. The sound came from the door. 3 knocks, perfectly timed. The figure never moved, yet the knocking continued. Nobody spoke. Nobody breathed. The thing outside tilted its head, exactly like the creatures on the ship. Except this wasn't one of them. This felt different, predatory, patient, curious. The lantern flickered. For a brief moment, darkness filled the room. When the light returned, the figure was gone. Relief swept through everyone. Then Sophie screamed. Everyone turned. The door behind them stood open. Rain blew inside. The darkness beyond the doorway seemed deeper than natural night. And from somewhere just outside, a voice spoke. Softly, almost gently. "Ethan." Every muscle in his body locked. The others stared at him, confused, terrified. The voice came again, closer. "Ethan Mercer." It knew him. The thing from beyond the void. The thing with the impossible eye. The thing that had smiled. It knew exactly where he was. And now it had found him. Outside, thunder shook the mountains. The darkness beyond the doorway seemed to shift, as if something enormous was moving within it. Watching, waiting, ready, and Ethan realized the terrifying truth. Earth wasn't the target. Earth was only the doorway, and whatever had awakened among the stars was finally arriving. The voice knew his name. That was the thought Ethan couldn't escape. Not the collapsing world. Not the alien fleet burning in the sky. Not the thing hiding beyond reality. The fact that it knew him. The darkness beyond the open doorway seemed alive, moving, breathing, watching. "Ethan," the voice was gentle, almost comforting. That somehow made it worse. Marcus raised a shotgun. The barrel trembled. "Get away from the door." The darkness remained silent. Then something stepped forward. Not fully, just enough. A hand emerged. Human. Perfectly human, pale, unremarkable. The hand belonged to a man standing beyond the threshold, except Ethan knew it wasn't a man, because the eyes remained wrong. Black, bottomless, ancient. The stranger smiled. "I've been looking for you." The lantern shattered. Darkness consumed the room. Screams erupted. Something moved, fast, too fast. Furniture crashed. Glass exploded. People scrambled blindly through the visitor center. Ethan felt someone grab his arm. "Sophie, run!" They bolted through a rear exit. Rain hammered the mountains. Lightning illuminated the forest. Behind them came sounds Ethan never wanted to hear again. Not screams, not fighting. Silence. Sudden silence, as though sound itself had been swallowed. The visitor center vanished behind the trees. Neither of them looked back. By dawn, they had climbed nearly 3 miles into the mountains. Neither spoke. Both understood something terrible had happened, something final. When they finally stopped, Sophie broke the silence. "Why does it know you?" Ethan stared toward the horizon. "I don't know." But even as he said it, a memory surfaced. A forgotten memory. 20 years old. A camping trip with his father. A strange light in the woods. Missing time. 3 hours neither of them could explain. His father had refused to discuss it afterward. Ever. The memory chilled him, because for the first time he wondered if this nightmare had truly started years ago, and not with humanity, with him. The sky changed on the 7th day, not gradually, instantly. At 2:17 p.m. every cloud vanished. The atmosphere itself seemed to clear. The heavens became unnaturally sharp, every star visible. Even in daylight, people across the planet stopped and stared upward, and then they saw them. Thousands, millions, shapes moving between the stars. At first they resembled distant shadows. Then humanity realized the horrifying truth. They weren't approaching Earth. They were already here. The darkness between stars had always hidden them, waiting, watching, sleeping. Now they were awake. Panic erupted worldwide. The remaining governments issued evacuation orders. To where, nobody knew. Cities emptied. Highways became graveyards of abandoned vehicles. Fuel disappeared. Food vanished. Civilization fractured into isolated pockets of survivors. The world was becoming tribal again, primitive, afraid, exactly as it had been thousands of years ago. Ethan and Sophie discovered a military outpost 3 days later, or what remained of one. The base appeared abandoned, fences destroyed, vehicles overturned, equipment scattered everywhere, yet someone had survived. Deep underground, a group of soldiers, scientists, engineers, roughly 30 people. Among them was Dr. Claire Vasquez, an astrophysicist, and the first person who gave Ethan answers, at least some answers. She led him into a secure room, closed the door, then placed an old photograph on the table. Ethan immediately froze. The photograph showed a forest, a campsite, a tent, a campfire, and 2 people, him and his father, taken 20 years earlier. His blood ran cold. "How do you have this?" Claire looked exhausted because she'd spent days asking herself the same question. "We found it in a classified government archive." Ethan's stomach dropped. "What archive?" Claire hesitated, then answered, "The archive documenting everyone who has seen them." Silence. "What do you mean, everyone?" Claire opened a thick folder. Inside were thousands of names, thousands, children, adults, people from every country, every culture, every decade, all connected by a single event. A sighting, an encounter, a missing memory, and every single one of them had vanished during the invasion. Every single one, except Ethan. He was the last. The bunker fell silent. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Ethan stared at the folder. His name sat on the final page, highlighted, circled, annotated, like someone had been waiting for this moment, waiting for him. Claire slid another document across the table. This one was older, much older. The paper looked centuries old, handwritten, translated from a language no longer spoken. "What is this?" Ethan asked. Claire swallowed. "A warning." The document described an event thousands of years old, a civilization, not human, a civilization that had existed before recorded history, before Egypt, before Sumer, before anything humanity remembered. According to the text, they discovered something buried beneath Earth. Something ancient, something sleeping, something that communicated through dreams. The civilization called it the listener. The room lights flickered. A low vibration filled the bunker. Ethan immediately recognized it. The signal. The same vibration that had started everything. Around them, alarms activated, soldiers rushed through hallways. People shouted, computers displayed warnings. Claire's face drained of color. No. The vibration intensified, stronger, closer. This wasn't a broadcast. This was a response. Something was answering. The bunker doors slammed shut automatically. Emergency systems activated. Outside, the earth trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. The entire mountain shook. Then came a sound, not from above. From below, deep below, beneath bedrock, beneath the mountain, beneath earth itself, a heartbeat. One massive heartbeat. Thump, silence, thump, silence, thump. The sound continued. Slow, ancient, alive. Every person in the bunker froze, because they all understood. The thing approaching Earth wasn't the first monster. It wasn't even the oldest. Something had already been here, waiting, sleeping, hidden beneath the planet for longer than humanity had existed. The listener. And after countless ages, it was finally waking up. Far above Earth, the stars disappeared, one by one. Entire sections of the night sky went dark, consumed, swallowed, erased. The approaching entity had reached the solar system. Its arrival was no longer measured in years, or months, or weeks. It was measured in hours. Inside the bunker, Ethan's head suddenly exploded with pain. He collapsed. Visions flooded his mind. Cities that never existed, worlds long dead, galaxies consumed by impossible darkness. And one final image, a doorway, standing beneath Earth, a doorway larger than continents, locked, sealed, ancient. And on the other side, something was trying to get in, something that terrified even the cosmic entity destroying civilizations, something older than both, something that had been imprisoned here, on Earth, since the beginning. Ethan opened his eyes. Blood ran from his nose. The pain faded, but the knowledge remained. The apocalypse wasn't the end. It was the unlocking, and somewhere beneath the planet, the first lock had just broken, to be continued. Thank you for spending part of your night with us. If you enjoyed tonight's story, be sure to subscribe and return for future archive entries. Until our next transmission, keep the lights low, trust nothing, and remember, some stories don't end when the telling is over. Good night, listener.